Paul here from My Perfect Failure, where we bring you real life stories that turn your failures into successes and your setbacks into opportunities. So, have you ever wondered if there's a secret superpower hidden within all of us that could unlock deeper relationships and personal growth? So, in today's episode, I'm joined by the brilliant Dr Leslie Becker Phelps, and we're uncovering the hidden superpower, self-awareness. So stick around, because by the end of this episode, you'll learn how self-awareness shapes your connections, how to develop it with compassion, and why it's never too late to start making a change. So stay tuned.
Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I am super excited as I have a wonderful guest for you. So joining us today, we have a renowned psychologist, therapist, speaker, and author. Her work is dedicated to helping people understand their inner selves and what they need to do to become emotionally and psychologically healthy. She is a medical reviewer for Everyday Health. She is also on the medical staff at RWJ University Hospital Somerset. She is also the best-selling author of 3 self-help books. She also writes the Making Change blog for Psychology Today. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Dr. Leslie Becker Phelps. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. I'm delighted. So this has been a number of years in the making. When I first started, when I decided I wanted to record, or I guess I say record, produce and actually get moving with My Perfect Failure, you one of the first, when I was doing my research, I really wanted to engage people that I felt that I could learn from, but more importantly, there were people that I felt that anybody that listens to the podcast could really learn, develop, and evolve and move their lives in a positive trajectory. And we connected a number of years ago, and I'm delighted to say to everybody that we're going to have an amazing conversation today. So I kind of alluded to that you're a clinical psychologist, and I guess appears to me, having researched you a little bit, that you're quite dedicated to really helping people improve their lives and really have a better quality of life with more self-awareness. But I'm keen to glean how you got involved in psychology. What was it about psychology that drew you in?
That's a good question. I'll give you an answer. I don't know that even I'm conscious of the full answer, but I think I've always been a reflective person and care about people like anybody is. I remember when I was in high school, I was chosen to be part of a project they had where, and I think it was a psychologist or social worker in graduate school developing a hotline. So I was trained to answer a hotline at that time and fielded, whatever calls I fielded in helping people who called in with different kinds of problems. And it felt right. It connected. When I was in my younger years, I thought maybe I would do teaching. So obviously I like that kind of that interaction kind of thing. The one-on-one really connects with me. So between wanting to help, having that experience, and it just seems to be the way my brain works.
Well, I'm pleased because I think life can be quite confusing. And as individuals, I think you'll know more about this, me, because I'm not a psychologist, but I think we can get confused, and I think we can really go off on the wayside. And it's difficult sometimes to how to draw ourselves back in and really lean into who we are and really have quality lives. So I'm pleased that people like you exist that really give us the answers and give us that self-awareness that we can really live impactful lives that are really about our own self-development. So today, I'm delighted that we're going to be covering your book, The Insecure in Love. And this really is about, I guess, what I'm keen to, but we had a little exchange on email. And really what I was keen to cover, and it really based on your suggestion, is around that happier, healthier connections. Because I think it appears to me today, the world is more complex, that there's a lot more going on. And I think it's really confusing with everything moving 1,000 miles per hour, that life to me appears as though it's getting more confusing. So I'm delighted to cover this subject. So initially, so I know that you've written a number of books, but your latest book, which we're going to cover today, The Insecure in Love, what was your motivation for this particular book?
It's a good question. To kind of expand on your first question, what got me into psychology, what kind of got me on the particular path I'm on is I was clinical director for a women's trauma program for some years. That would be women with histories of significant physical, sexual, emotional abuse, especially from childhood. And I was doing that for a bit. And then when my children were very young, I took a break and I thought, what do I want? What direction do I want to go now? And I thought, I want to explore everything that's out there and find my path. And I thought, wow, I've done the trauma thing. Let me try to do something light. So I got into positive psychology, which I think is great. But I kept saying, but what about the people this doesn't work for? What's going on? My explorations took me to attachment theory, which is about how we connect from birth. It's a biological system and how we connect from birth going forward. And it really opened my eyes to how the way and we could talk more about this, but the way we connect to ourselves, the way we connect to others, those are formed from childhood, and they really set a template for who we are as people, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others and the world. And it really helps us understand better what we need to have emotional well-being, to feel good in the world, in ourselves, in our relationships. And so I explored and expanded on that. And I found that through the research I did, how in order to get to a place that's healthy, we need to develop more awareness, self-awareness, awareness of others. And when we develop greater awareness, like in a fuller way, not just a piece here or a piece there, in a fuller way, we can develop more empathy. We can develop more compassion. We develop what I would call compassionate self-awareness. And now we're on the path to feeling healthier in ourselves and our relationships and having fuller lives. So that's really, for me, the story of where we are now. So as I was doing all of that, I had my first book, The Insecure in Love. Insecure in Love was my first book. And I explained the attachment theory, compassionate self-awareness. And then that folded into my second book, where we looked at still people's struggles, but it was bouncing back from rejection. So struggles with rejection. And then that unfolded into my third book, which is the one that we were talking more about today, which is the Insecure in Love Workbook, which honestly takes the first book where I explain attachment theory and compassionate self-awareness. And I talk also about expanding from the second book, STEAM, developing awareness in particular domains of awareness, our sensations, our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, something called mentalizing. So I put all that together in a workbook to allow people to really take the steps and looking for themselves where they need to explore more and how they can develop more awareness, more connection with themselves and others. So they all kind of one flowed from the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I love the idea. You kindly sent me a PDF and I've been kind of going through it and stuff. I love the idea that it's a workbook as well, because to me, it gets you to think more. You're engaging with the content. You're thinking about, I think you think about how it applies to you when you're answering the questions, but also you think around relationships that you have with other people and how it might apply to them. So it really gets you thinking, because I think sometimes with books, for me, is that I love to read books and to learn and to gain more knowledge. But I think that retention sometimes can, or that involvement sometimes, for me, I can't speak for everybody actually, but sometimes for me, sometimes I get, I get lost. So sometimes I might read something and I might be inspired by something, but because I'm not doing anything with it, I might put the book down, maybe not read it for another year. Sometimes I don't get that embedded learning. So I think the idea of having a workbook with it, I think that's pretty genius. So you talk about attachment theory and how important that is. Does that go from a particular cycle? So if when we're born, is that imperative from maybe when we're born to a certain age in terms of what we will learn, or if we don't, I guess, engage in attachment theory, it can be lost a little bit.
So attachment theory it's a theory. That's what it is. And it's trying to understand our attachment system, which is biologically wired into us. And it's there for us through all of life. We develop a foundation in our early years but even our foundation, we can change with experiences over time, which is fortunate. That's why we can address the struggles people have in therapy as adults. We can still make changes. But the whole idea is that it's part of really a survival system. You're born into this world. You think of infants, they're like little, they can't take care of themselves. So they look to their caregivers. They're what we would call attachment figures to care for them. And they connect by, looking at the caregiver in the face, and there's this kind of back and forth. And so the caregiver is pulled in to protect the child, both physically in the world, so they don't, they stay safe from physical threats, but also emotionally. So when a baby cries, it's very distressed. And a caregiver who's attuned to the baby will be able to calm the baby down. We repeat these over time, like again and again through childhood. And with the child, when all goes well, what happens is the child takes in that, oh, I can turn to another for them to be there for me and calm me. I feel accepted and loved. And the child isn't cognitively thinking this, but they take it in. And then what they also start to take in is they take in a sense of, I am lovable, right? I'm good the way I am, so to speak. And so they then take in not only that they can turn to a caregiver to take care of them and comfort them, but they learn how to comfort themselves, being able to accept themselves and use what they've taken in. So what we're doing is we're developing two models: a model of others, are they emotionally available and able to be there for me? And a model of myself, how lovable am I? When things go well, I feel very lovable. I have worth, I have value. And then as the more people have struggles, it will be all the way along to the other end of the spectrum. I'm not lovable. I'm unworthy. I'm flawed. I'm deficient. And that will speak to how we relate to ourselves and to other people in the world. So that follows us through life. We have the foundation of who I am, right? And how my relationships are. And then you take that with you into your experiences. So if as a child you learned that you're lovable and others are reliable, you get into a relationship later in life and you hit struggles in life, whatever they are, you're like, okay, I can handle this. I can work, I can do this. And when I'm struggling, I can also turn to the people in my life, my partner maybe, and that feels good. And so then that perpetuates it. Or let's say you were what we call anxiously attached. I feel like there's something wrong with me. Oh my gosh, something difficult happens as an adult. I become very anxious, but I've learned that if I can engage someone else, they can comfort me. And so then that our relationships get all caught up with, oh, I can get this comforting from others. And that kind of becomes part of the character of our relationships. Is that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It feels to me, and I know that you talk about this, I read it in some of your content, and I think we've mentioned it already, self-awareness. So part of the book, or maybe a big part of the book, is it really getting to or wanting people that read the book and people that engage with the book to become much more self-aware of who they are, some of the challenges that we might face or feel that we face in our relationships, and get us to maybe, if we understand them, then we can, because if we don't understand things, it's just confusing. We get frustrated, and I guess it's not going to improve our relationships. It's going to make our relationships worse with ourselves and maybe with our partners and our friends and whoever we want to bond with and who we want those really long and everlasting relationships with. So self-awareness, how much is that part of the book and the workbook?
It is central to the workbook. And if you never read my books, it's central to your life.
Mm,
So if you are in relationship, you're just not happy. And you say, oh, what are you not happy with? I don't know. Well, what is it that they're doing that makes you unhappy? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know. How do you make the relationship better? You
mm.
can't, right? Are you happy? I don't know. Like, where do you find direction?
That happens all the
So
time. That happens all the time.
all the
I
time.
bet everybody listening to this now can think of a conversation with their spouse, their partner, where your partner asks you, what's the matter? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
So that's huge. You need to start there. With therapy. People call me. I just spoke to someone this morning and I said, what's the problem? He said, well, I'm not really sure. I said, well, why are you calling? Like, how can I help? And so you have to know what the
Mm,
problem is.
okay, okay.
Okay. So that I would consider like the first level, even the most superficial level is I know I have a problem.
Mm,
Oh, here's what characterizes the problem. I feel anxious when I talk to a member of the opposite sex,
mm,
or when I have arguments with someone, I feel like I don't know what to do. And then we start to explore, okay, so what is going on for you? And this is where I talk about a way of, it's one thing to say, like, develop self-awareness, but what does that mean? So then what I did was developed what I call STEAM. And it's a way of guiding people through developing more self-awareness.
mm,
So the S in STEAM is sensations. What are the sensations you're having? So if you're talking to your spouse and you say, like, what's wrong? And the person says, I don't know. Well, if you're the one saying, I don't know, what do you notice in your body? Is your heart beating fast? Is your stomach churning?
mm,
Are your muscles tight? What physically is going on? Because that will tell us if you are at ease and you are feeling calm and a sense of serenity, your body is going to feel different than if you're angry or anxious or sad. So one way into what is it that's going on for you is, what are the sensations in your body? What are you sensing? Thoughts. The ST for STEAM is thoughts. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about your thoughts? So my thoughts are, I think my partner's cheating on me. And what are my thoughts about my thoughts? I think I'm a complete idiot because I know that they've shown themselves to be faithful, but I can't help thinking that they're cheating on me. That's your thought about your thought.
yeah, yeah.
Your emotions, and I'll use the same example. What are your emotions? I'm feeling very jealous and I'm feeling angry. What's your emotional response to your emotions? I am angry with myself because I know my partner is faithful. Emotions about your emotions. Then actions. What are your actions? Well, if we stay with the same example, when my partner goes out to meet up with friends, I text them nonstop because I'm thinking that they're going to be cheating on me. Your action is the nonstop texting. What is your reaction? What are your actions and reactions? So what's your reaction? Your reaction is maybe you beat yourself up, or you demand your partner comes home, or you start a fight with them. So these are all levels of awareness. The more you
Mm,
can answer these questions, and that's what my book takes you through, each of these levels, right? The domains, really, of
yeah.
awareness. The M is a trickier one. It's the word is mentalizing. And what that means is being able to understand someone's actions based on their mental states, their thoughts, their feelings, their desires, their fears, whatever their experiences are. If you can really get it, not just in your head where you can state it, but you feel it in your heart, your head and your heart. If you get where someone's coming from, and this, you can mentalize yourself, you can understand yourself, or you can mentalize someone else. When you mentalize someone, then that opens you up to having empathy for their experience. It opens you up to having compassion for what they're going through. It opens you up to forgiveness, which we all need in relationship. And again, all of these things apply to your relationship with yourself. Do you have empathy for what you're going through? Can you have compassion for your struggles? Can you be forgiving to yourself as well as with others? that's where I see like the self-awareness is understood through STEAM. That's the workbook, get you through all of that. And then you start relating differently with that to yourself and your partners, and you can grow and heal and kind of expand your life.
Wow. I'm excited listening to this because it almost feels like a masterclass of self-awareness. You know, you're creating mini psychologists who have got the ability to understand not just themselves, but also their partners and maybe people that they're close with. And it's almost like you're giving us the equations. It's almost like not maths, but maybe it's a maths of sorts, but you're helping us to pause, reflect, think, and make sense of emotions and thoughts that we have. In many respects, I can think about thoughts that I have that aren't accurate, that aren't serving me, aren't serving a conversation that I might have with somebody or I had with somebody. And when I reflect, maybe sometimes it can be years later, I reflect and think, well, what was I thinking of then? And they're just minor things, but
Mm-hmm.
they take you down a path that I didn't want to go down. So it's wonderful that you've created this book. So with regards to partners that or somebody that wants to thinking actually this totally resonates with me. I really want to really explore this. Maybe they can think about a situation with maybe their partner or their or loved one or a close friend where they can sense that periodically they have the same not argument, it could be an argument or could be a point of confusion or point of difference.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a book where if somebody's listening now that both the couples can get the book and actually go through it and then they can maybe compare contrast, or should it really be done as an individual exercise?
No, actually, that's a great question and a great suggestion. If both people are open to the self-exploration, then it's a great thing to do in tandem. This is not a magic wand. It's not like, I'm not trying to sell like some magic formula. This takes work. And if you're both up to wanting to improve yourselves and your relationship, what a great activity to do together, a constructive activity. You can each explore your own lives, your experiences, explore for yourself, and then you share. And in the sharing, you're coming to understand each other. Remember the whole mentalizing
Mm,
concept? The more you share with each other, the more you can understand where each other's coming from. And that will open you up to greater empathy and compassionate awareness, right? And a happier life together. And then you can also, as you go through the book, see the patterns that develop that maybe like you suggested that you're repeating, and you could be like, oh my gosh, I can now see that when we're having arguments it's because I get so anxious that I'm trying to force you to say something, and the partner might be like, oh, I get it, like when I see you getting anxious like that, it just reminds me of stuff from my childhood and all I want to do is shut it down, and I can see how then that makes you more anxious, and you
mm,
start having these conversations and you can make the changes based on really understanding each other. And more towards the end of the book, and I do have some online resources on my website that honestly I had so much to share. I cut down as much as I could for the book. Publisher said it's got to be shorter, so there are even more resources on my website for the interactions, like active listening, exercises, and things like that, that aren't even in the book, so kind of bonus stuff. And but the towards the end of the workbook, there is more discussion about the relationship piece.
okay. Okay. So which is fabulous. So definitely we're going to put a link to your book on the show notes. So it'd be very easy for people to get the book and then they can go on your website and actually get additional resources, which I didn't know would be available. So I've said I love the idea and the concept around this. Do you think that I guess what I think a little bit is that I think with life it can become very at times it can become monotonous. So if we have a relationship that is stalled, could be with a partner, could be with somebody without these insights, without the awareness, invariably we can think actually this is how it is, this is how it's meant to be. So we don't even explore the idea that there could be tweaks that we can do. There could be things that we don't know about ourselves. It may be that we don't think that we're deserving of a loving, secure relationship. So I guess for people that may be in that place now, who might be pretty much down in the dumps, they could be in the doldrums and think that this is pretty much their lot. So I guess what we're saying, or you're saying in your book, actually, that isn't the case. You can look at the book, you can look at exercises. There are things that you can do to really trace what's happening and things that you can do to fix. I don't know whether you can expound on that a little bit.
Sure. Paul, in the beginning, when you said, oh, you looked at the book and what you liked about it is as a workbook, you didn't just read it and be like, oh, that's a nice concept. And then you put it on the shelf and you forget, right?
It's exciting.
Hmm?
It's exciting because it's making me think. It's making me want to investigate. And actually, it's given me hope.
So this is the way that I think the book works is if you can tap into your curiosity, right? Understanding it's a process. It's not something that you can like learn, know, and now you go forward in life and you're better. No, it's about providing some guidance for how to explore yourself and your relationship. And with that guidance, you find out what works for you or what's happening for you. You learn more about your experience. And that is exciting. I mean, think about it. I mean, to learn more about yourself, to understand yourself, to understand your place in the world, this is big stuff. And the longer I've done this, the more I have really come to believe, feel, have faith in that what's central in our lives is connection to ourselves, connection to partners or other people in our lives, connection to nature. It's all about connection. When we have healthy connections, we feel healthy. And while this is not what I would call a spiritual book, I personally believe this expands out to spirituality, connection with God or connection with something bigger than you. It's connection is the key, is the thread that runs through everything so that we can connect better the more we can be aware in all the different domains of our experience. And that's what this book's trying to help people to walk through. So there were some exercises you might do, be like, oh, okay, that's nice. And maybe it's a little bit helpful. Maybe let's say there are some that aren't even helpful. But there's other ones you're going to go, wow, maybe I need to spend more time on this one because, this connects in different ways. And I certainly encourage people in this book, if there are certain exercises that connect with you, you do it, you work the book, come back to the same exercises later, because if you've made some changes, you're now a somewhat different person. So each of the exercises might be a bit different for you. More, further opportunity for growth.
Yeah. And I'm guessing as well that there might be parts in the book, like everybody's different. So I guess there might be different parts in the book where we think that really resonates with me. That really speaks to me. So potentially that could be point of focus that we think, actually, I know that if I can remedy this part, which the book speaks about, this is really going to help me feel better about myself. It's going to help me understand myself. And actually, it might help me understand some of those awkward moments or difficult moments I have with a partner or somebody.
In fact, there are some parts in the book where I'll give some, if you're having trouble with this exercise, try this or try that. Or if you're having trouble with this, I suggest you, make a note, come back to it later, because there will be some other exercises that might help you to understand it better or be able to kind of access this better. Because I can't, because it's written for so many people, it's not really tailored for each individual person in the sense that different people may have to do this in somewhat different order. I lay out the exercises in the order of STEAM: sensations, thoughts, emotions, actions, mentalizing. Each one is a chapter. But some people like, oh yeah, sensations, I know what's happening in my body. Other people may not, but they may be able to know thoughts. So you may find that certain things come easier, and you may have to go back to the other ones after you strengthen the areas that came a little bit more easily. So for each person, it may be a bit of a build your own adventure kind of thing. You go
Yeah.
through, but if an exercise doesn't speak to you, that's fine. Jump over it, come back later.
So I've just written down the word empathy. So are we, when we go through the book, should our empathy be stronger once we've not stronger is the word I was looking for, but certainly more, I guess, more aware, and maybe we're become more empathetic, because I'm assuming that we would have more self-awareness around us and hopefully around other people that we connect with, whether it be a loved one or maybe people at work, or just people in the street that we engage.
So what happens is that the more awareness you build, the more you can explore the blocks to empathy or the blocks to compassion. So try to think of an example. Can you think of an example where somebody might be, say, angry with their partner for something
Yeah,
they've
it could
done?
be, yeah, it could be. Sometimes it can be really innocuous things like I told you to buy, shopping and you missed. So there was say this is something randomly come into my head. You didn't buy the washing up liquid that I want. You bought the different one. Something like that.
Perfect. So then you're angry because you've told the person, your partner, whoever it is, I've told you 3 times, like this is not the first time. And you just like, what are they doing? Right. And then you can be like, well, why am I so angry? Is really the detergent, like, is that really that important for me to like, especially if you get really angry?
Mm.
Huh, this is out of proportion. What's going on? Well, I think they're doing it on purpose. Huh, they're doing it on purpose. Do I really think they're doing it on purpose? Yeah, well, if they're really doing it on purpose, does that mean they're angry with me? Why are they angry with me? And now you start to understand what's going on. Or no, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I know that they tend to be scattered and so they forget things a lot. And that's kind of the nature of them. And I can see how it makes their life harder. They struggle so much. This is really hard. Okay, I am aggravated because I wanted the other product.
Yeah.
And yet I can understand that they're having a hard time too. Actually, I'll give you a real life example. I personally have trouble with time. I am terrible in my head with time. I use all kinds of coping mechanisms so I don't mess it up. And when I was early in my marriage, and I would forget things or get things the wrong time for things with my husband, and he'd get annoyed and think like, well, I must kind of a sense of he's not as important because I'm forgetting his stuff. But with time and with discussion, he came to realize I forgot my stuff too. It had nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
It's because I got things confused. And so now that's become like part of our relationship. He knows I get it. I forget things. I have my way of coping. He reminds me. And then we kind of laugh when he'll tell me something. It's like, I can't even explain it. It's like something's happening in 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, I'm like, well, I thought it was 10 minutes. And he's like, yeah, that would be 10 minutes from the starting point. Like, so we're able to laugh around it.
Yeah.
But that comes with me understanding myself, me being able to know, okay, this is a struggle. It's just something about the way my brain is wired. For me to come to a place of acceptance, I am no less worthy a person because I confuse time. I don't know what day of the week it is.
Mm.
That doesn't make me less worthy person. I can be okay with that. It's frustrating. Sometimes it can be embarrassing, but I'm okay. And then I need to be able to communicate to my partner, my husband, what's going on for me, help him understand my experience. And when he does that, he can have empathy for what I'm going through, even while he's frustrated. He can have both, right? And we work it out. So does that help?
Oh, totally, totally. It totally makes sense, because so I'm thinking about when these scenarios happen, and they happen every day. Sometimes I won't name them, but I can be with friends or family, and there could be with spouses, and there could be intelligent people, but a little thing might happen and it causes friction. It causes an argument. And so the reason I mentioned that, and it could be anybody in the street. We could be in a supermarket and we see couples, and we make out that we're not listening, but we might hear a little altercation. We might feel the tension. But what resonates with me is that this is removing that. So instead of the tension happening, that friction, it's almost removing the friction, because there's this layer of understanding that we have for one another, because I guess we've gone through that communication piece, which I think is a game changer, really.
But it is very important that we develop self-awareness and self-acceptance, because if we don't, we add to our suffering. Look,
Mm.
it's already not easy, but if you're going to beat yourself up or create higher expectations than you can follow through with, now you become defensive, and you're more likely to get in an argument with other people. Not only are you now in a sense an argument with yourself or beating yourself up, but there's conflict with others because it's hard to just be accepting. You can't work with someone around that.
Yeah. So could you just maybe expand a little bit on self-acceptance, how that works, self-acceptance? So is that us being more tolerant of ourselves?
Yes, and not just tolerating, because sometimes you can think of tolerating like, with gritted teeth. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I can handle this. All
Yeah.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
more like it's okay. Like I
Okay.
like I accept that these are my
Yeah.
limitations, or these are my partner's limitations. Like it doesn't mean it's what you want to be. It's just you're not fighting what
Mm.
is. You're accepting it.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Yeah, tolerant is the wrong word because it's almost a begrudging acceptance. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I totally get it. Totally get it. And I'm thinking about age. So what age ideally? I know this book is for all of us, but is there a certain age where we can start to maybe, if someone's watching this or listening to this now, where they can start reading this book? Is it because the reason I asked that question, because somewhere along the line, or along the way, these skills that you've put together in your book are lost, or maybe they weren't there in the first place. Maybe we need to be educated on the awareness and the tools that you've put into the book. So is there an age that we should maybe start to, or to get the book?
Whatever your age is right now is the age.
Okay.
There's,
Yeah.
it's you can't be too young to work on this stuff, and you
Mm.
can't be too old. I've certainly had people come into therapy and they're like, I'm 65, I'm 71, is it too late? If you're living, breathing, you're changing, and you can have a choice to try to influence how you change.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. That's a good answer. That's the one that I think is an answer that I think works for all of us. And we're getting towards the end now. I'm conscious of your time, but the book really is it. So it's the idea to enhance and improve all our relationships that we have. So it could be with our partners, it could be with our spouses, or is it wider than that? Does it really speak to how we are able to communicate generally when we're going about our daily business?
That's a really good question. So, Insecure in Love Workbook or Insecure in Love, both of the books, they're focusing on romantic relationships, but the truth is it's equally applicable to other relationships. But any relationships as you
Mm.
go through the world. But I will say this, that if you remember, this is a biological system that is in us that's about survival. So we are the closer a relationship we have, the more vulnerable we are, right? The more you open
Yeah.
yourself up to someone, you feel more vulnerable. So it's when we have increased vulnerability that we're more likely to have these attachment issues, we'll call them. Particular themes that'll run through your life of ways you try to protect yourself that kind of backfire, that cause you problems within yourself or in your relationships. Those are more likely to be stronger, to happen more often, or more powerful the closer the relationship. But all of this still applies with any relationship.
Mhm.
So you may find that you are the most understanding, empathic person, kind and giving and all these things, but you get into a romantic relationship and all of a sudden you get angry. You have a hard time really empathizing with the other person because you feel so hurt. You feel so rejected. So then it's hard when you're feeling rejected to be empathic to the other person. That's going to happen more strongly the closer relationship,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
the stronger the particular issues are for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. And look, I think I've got two questions. So I think the first one is, well, no, three. So the first question is, I love the book, love the concept. I'm excited by the book as well because we all know how close relationships can be challenging. Sometimes we have period where, particularly when if we get married or we first start dating or whatever it is, and those close relationships, everything's wonderful. But then it doesn't always stay at that same level. Then it dips, and then we have to work at it. This really, I think, helps in those scenarios when the kind of that honeymoon period. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but that period is the wonderful period where we're just getting to know one another, and then we need something like this. So I think it's wonderful for that. But I guess the question was, do we have to be realistic just in terms of not expecting it to change instantly? So we've got to go, the work, it's got a workbook for a reason because we have to do a bit of work.
Absolutely. As I've said, it needs to, this is a process. So
Yeah.
there's no magic wand. It's a process. And rather than thinking of it like, oh, I failed at this or I'm not good at that, life is about growth and moving forward. So rather than define where you are as failure, be like, oh, this is my starting point. How am I doing? Or if you don't, let's say you repeat being jealous when you didn't need to be. Instead of being like, oh, what's my problem? You can look at it and say, huh, what's going on for me? How can I understand this? This is my opportunity to grow. And so you can become curious about it. And that will help you to move forward. So that's what I would encourage people, a way to think about it.
Yeah. And that's again what I like. I like the fact that we have the opportunity, an amazing opportunity, and we can grow and we can learn. Because even if we question something, to me, that's more self-awareness. So if we're questioning something, we're actually thinking in a positive way because we want to explore it. We're curious to get to the point where we improve something. So yeah, that's amazing. And penultimate question is, where can people get the book?
Oh, thank you. You can get the book wherever books are sold, certainly Amazon, Barnes and Noble, the publisher, New Harbinger Publications, but pretty much wherever books are sold, you're likely to find the books.
Okay, lovely. So I can get links and everything, put them in the show notes. And if people want to, maybe I mentioned your blogs and everything where people might want to access those. Is there a particular blog that you would suggest that people, if they want to maybe absorb some more of your content?
Well, if they go to my website, and I know you're going to have that on the show notes, it's Dr. Becker Phelps, becker-phelps.com. You can also sign up for my newsletter so that every time, because I have a YouTube channel, so when I post a YouTube video or my blogs, any of that, you would get, updates with the newsletter. So that's a great way to do it. So
Okay.
that's probably the best way.
Perfect. Okay, lovely. So I'll get the website, put that in the show notes as well. And finally, the recurring question. So the recurring question is, if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or past, who might you invite?
This was a hard one. So I thought about it and I came up with Gandhi, who would have been a fascinating person. I remember reading his biography, and people think of Gandhi as this older, wiser gentleman, but just when you read and learn his path, he didn't start out, the person he ended up as. So he would be, I think, really interesting. Robin Williams,
Yeah.
thought was an amazing man, complicated man. I think he might be interesting, especially if it could be not like a show, but an actual like conversation as opposed to him performing at the meal.
Yeah.
And the last one, Eve. You said person, deceased. If I could meet Eve and have a conversation with her, wouldn't that be interesting? The mother of all mothers.
Yeah. Wow. That would be quite a dinner.
Wouldn't it?
That would be quite a dinner. The mind boggles at what themes would come up. What would be the central themes for that dinner? It would definitely be one of those ones that you would remember forever. So if I had a magic wand, it would be happening. Sadly, at this time, I don't have a magic wand, but it's wonderful. It's wonderful to let the mind wander and imagine.
Absolutely. Great question.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Wow. Dr. Phelps, amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been pure joy and very, really hopeful, actually. I love the book, what I've read of it. I'll finish it probably this week. And I just love the idea that we all can live happier lives, more content lives, happier with ourselves and happier with other people. And I think that's what we need. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And you know what? I encourage you to not finish it this week.
Really?
Work the book.
Okay.
Work the book,
Okay.
take the time. Better to
Yeah.
get through less of the book and go deep
Yeah.
than breeze through it, like you said. Otherwise, you end up with some concepts, they're back on the shelf
Yeah.
and you lose them.
No,
So,
it is a game changer because you do have those relationships that can be, don't know how to resolve them, or situations. So you kind of settle, you kind of think that that's it. So you don't really, because we don't have these, I guess, unless we have your, I guess, knowledge, your educational base, we don't have the patience to think around how we can actually remedy those situations. And what your book does, it really gets us to ask questions that we hadn't even considered. So yeah,
well,
okay.
thank you.
Well,
Very
thanks for your.
kind words.
No, you're very welcome. Hopefully, in the future we can have more conversations. That would be amazing. So, but thanks for your time today.
Thank you. You take care.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show. So please do tell us what you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.